I'm going to start this talk. I had this thought. This was like 2 weeks ago that this notion came into my mind about the way that we learn, how we arrive at the destination of technique, of greater skill and martial arts. And I say this from time to time in class, and I'm not sure how many of you guys get it, but I'm going to say it again anyways. If I had a magic wand and I could wave this wand and magically and instantly, all of you would be perfect at martial arts, I'll up the ante. I wave the wand and even I become perfect in martial arts. We're all amazing. And that's it. It's like one instant we suck, the next instant we're great. We know everything. We have the knowledge and we have the physical skill. And we try to spar and we're able to beat everybody. We go to grapple and we're tapping fools left and right. We go to meditate and we are completely, perfectly focused the entire time. The mind never wanders and there's no difficulty at all. Your meditation is a cinch. If I had that magic wand, I wouldn't wave it. I wouldn't wave it, and it's not because I'm a jerk. It's because that would rob you and me of the experience and the real value and the real benefit of the journey of our practice. Now, this talk is entitled Enlightenment is Not a Destination. And there are a couple of different ways that I want to go with this. But if we take the same idea from what I was just talking about, if I had the ability to wave my magic wand and instantly we would be enlightened, that would be a little bit harder for me to pass up, but I would still maybe not do it because it robs us. First of all, it's impossible. The magic wand by itself is impossible, but there is no, in the way that I'm going to talk about this tonight, there is no enlightenment without the journey, without the struggle. And this is my opinion. This is my my way of thinking about dealing with the concept of enlightenment up to this point in my life, and maybe that'll change at some point. But it's been this way for a little bit. I want to talk about what is enlightenment. What is enlightenment to me? And it means different things to different people. But when I talk about enlightenment, I'm talking about the disillusion of the ego, the transcendence from ego mind, where you are viewing yourself as separate and apart from everybody and everything in the universe. And you're transcending that into oneness, where you are very much experiencing yourself as a part of everything else. You no longer have this separation or distinction. And when I first heard about enlightenment and started studying and reading and meditating and all of this, I had this concept of enlightenment as a binary kind of thing, where you go from switch off, I'm not enlightened, I do the stuff, and then someday I have an experience and the switch is turned on and now I'm enlightened. And I'm permanently enlightened, and it's like that forever. And I don't think that that is a very helpful or even really truly accurate way of looking at enlightenment. And there are people who would disagree with me and say that that is how it works. But my experience of enlightenment, and first of all, I'll say that I don't think that I am enlightened. And I heard my Sifu Brown, say that once within the first couple of years of my practice. He's talking about enlightenment, and he says to us, by the way, I'm not enlightened. I haven't had that experience yet. And I was like, what? Stephen Brown's not enlightened? If he's not, who is? And that was part of me, you know, I was like 18 years old. But also, like, I mean, Stephen Brown's very, very wise and is great at teaching and all this stuff. And I'm sure some of you, probably kids later on watching this talk years from now on the internet, hear me say I'm not enlightened and go, what? Stephen Scott's not enlightened? Are you serious? And it's not as simple as that. But if you are looking at enlightenment as being a binary thing, and it's like, that's it, I'm enlightened, and now I no longer am ever, you know, in the ego. I am really just an avatar traveling through the universe and just here for the good of mankind, and I have no desires or anything myself. That's not me. I'm hoping to get there someday, and that's the direction that I'm heading in. That's the direction that I'm working towards, at least. But I think that meditation is a process, and enlightenment, rather, is a process. Meditation is a tool that we use to travel this road, and we use to take this journey. But I don't actually think that it's very helpful to think of meditation as a destination point. You get there, and you're done, and that's it. And there are a few reasons for this, but one of the reasons is, if you think of it as a point and you keep thinking of yourself as somebody who's not there yet, this usually ends up sounding to your mind and your ego like, I'm not good enough. And that thought is the antithesis of enlightenment. Enlightenment is knowing that you're good enough because there's nothing for you to compare yourself to. You're also bad enough. You're exactly as terrible and as wonderful as everybody that you will ever meet in your entire life. And you're also as terrible and wonderful as the stars in the sky and the worms in the ground and, you know, nuclear explosions and the dew on the grass and a summer's morn and whatever else. We're all the same stuff. And as soon as we start to separate ourselves and compare ourselves and say, I'm not that yet, then it has a tendency to keep us small. And one of the most brilliant things about enlightenment that I have ever heard is describing it as what we are kind of caught up in our ego consciousness and our everyday way of looking at ourselves in the world is a habit of ego identification. So I like looking at it as a habit that we can break. And the work is a long, arduous, painful, yet incredible journey of breaking that habit of ego identification. And to say that I'm not there yet at the end of the journey is not a very helpful way of looking at it. You want to look at it like I am somewhere on the path. And I am more enlightened than I used to be, even though that is a comparison. If you're seeing yourself as making progress, that's helpful, right? So if you are meditating and you're sitting there and you're thinking, I suck at this, I'm never going to get great at meditation, and I'm never going to be enlightened, what's the point of any of this? Just remember, you're on the path and you're heading in the right direction, and keep doing that. And you are enlightened. You are at your core. If you are able to, even for a moment, let go of that ego consciousness, you'll recognize and experience that you are perfect. You are absolutely as complete and enlightened as you ever need to be. This is it. I like to think of enlightenment and death as being very related, if not the same thing. So I'll tell you right now, this brings me great peace of mind, because I know that even if I don't make it like this life and I don't hit that enlightenment and the bells and whistles and fireworks don't go off for me, I know when I croak, I'm still going to make it, because when you're dead, you're not identifying as the ego. You're not identifying as anything. And this is part of our practice, thinking of meditation as like a daily death or a daily experience of death. This helps us not to fear it as much or at all. And most of you guys know that my mom passed recently. And while that is very sad and some of it has been traumatic for me, I keep reminding myself that my mom is in a better place, whether or not you believe in heaven. She's no longer suffering. She's no longer suffering the ego identification, which is all suffering, right? All of life is suffering. This is what Buddha teaches us. So as soon as we start to equate these things, then that kind of frees us up from needing to be so like stressed about our meditation practice and needing to be enlightened right now. Like, take your time. If you don't make it, you'll make it eventually, whatever happens. We talk about the concept. I hardly ever talk about the concept of reincarnation and karma, but I like the concept. I don't necessarily believe in it in the same way that a lot of people do, but I certainly believe that once I die, I'm going to take on another form, right? If I die and I become dirt and then the worms eat me, I'm a worm. And the bird eats the worm, now I'm a bird. I'm flying through the air. It's awesome. And I believe that's going to happen for sure. So this, I'm kind of getting a little bit off track here, but I'm going to continue. The magic wand, it's so tempting, and it would be so terrible because it would rob us of the experience, and it would rob us of the real wisdom that perspective brings us. So think of enlightenment as, again, being a journey that you're on. And if you think of it as a final destination, then of course what you would want to do is just wave the wand or press the button and teleport. Now I'm at the end. I made it there. That's it. But the problem is that life and our experience as human beings, it doesn't work that way. And we are really here. This is like school. You don't go to school so that then you can just be done with school. Now, when I was in school, that's what I was in school for. I was in school so I could be done with school. And the whole time I'm just looking at the clock like, when is this class over? But that's a stupid way to do it, because you want to be there and learn as much as you can. And life is the same way. Most of us are just rushing through life, and it's like, how can I get, I got to rush through this thing that I don't really enjoy doing so that I can get to the next thing. And you end up just doing that over and over again, and you find one day that you just rushed through everything. And on the one hand, if you believe that death is synonymous with enlightenment, then maybe you're fine to rush to the end of it. But we're here to grow and learn. And wherever we get, however much we can get from it is perfect. And the journey, the more difficult and the more of a test that it is for us, the better. If you look at quotes online, which I did for a second, I was like, I should say something here about enjoying the journey. Life is a journey, enjoy it. And you look at these quotes, and it's all like, fluff, and life is so grand and wonderful, and isn't the journey so nice? It's not. The journey sucks sometimes. The journey is supposed to suck. That's why it's so good for us, and that's why we grow from it. Some of you guys have heard this phrase before. You got to embrace the suck. If you don't embrace it, then you are not only are you getting the challenge and the difficulty and the pain of life, but you are creating extra unnecessary suffering for yourself. There's plenty of suffering. There's plenty of difficulty and pain without us adding our own. And so if you are, sitting down to meditate, it's a hard meditation, and you go down to sit the next time and you're like, meditation is so hard. When am I going to get this? When am I ever going to be better at this? And then you're sitting in that meditation and your mind wanders and you start to beat yourself up and you go, why can't I do this? How come my mind keeps wandering? Why can't I just be good at meditating? And you start taking it personally and you start asking yourself, is this ever going to happen? And you're doubting and all of this stuff. This is suffering. Suffering is the self-imposed extra pain and the taking it personally that we just love to do. We love to take things personally. That's what the ego does. The ego is all about making it all about us. And when we can let that go for a moment and stop taking things personally and stop making it about us, that's when we can start to experience the oneness. Now, in meditation, there are a couple of different ways that this will happen. And we will have both of these things. We will have, as I've been talking about, the more general experience of progress, where if you were to look back down the road, you can see you've traveled a decent amount, right? You're better, you're calmer, you're more peaceful. People ask you, how come you're so happy all the time now? You used to be such an annoying person to be around. Now you're annoying because you're so happy all the time. These things that we can recognize, the slow progress, this is a form of enlightenment. And this is not, these are the ways that I like to think about these two terms, samadhi and satori. It's not necessarily like the absolute most popular definition, but it's the way that I think of it. So samadhi, it is derived from the root samadha, which means to collect or to bring together. And it's often translated as concentration or unification of mind. That's just from the Wikipedia page of samadhi. But the way I like to think of samadhi is it is a process. It is kind of a slow, more permanent way of being with the mind, with your consciousness. And this goes on to say in the early Buddhist text, samadhi is associated with the term samatha, which is calm, abiding. And it's also in another tradition defined as one-pointedness of mind. So like when we talk about mushin, you're so single-pointedly focused that everything else falls away from your awareness. And this is a great way to look at the type of consciousness and awareness that we're aiming for in meditation. But there's also this idea of satori. And I like to think of satori as a more momentary experience. It's like a fast awakening. And it can refer to comprehension or understanding. And it is sometimes synonymous with another phrase, which is kensho, which is perception of Buddha nature or emptiness. And according to some people, kensho is a brief glimpse, and then some people say satori is a more deeper spiritual experience. But I like to think of it as more like a characterization of that aha moment, where through meditation or through some experience in life, you are brought to a deeper, more profound way of experiencing the moment and yourself, your true nature. And samadhi is maybe therefore, kind of a building up of different satoris. It's like I'm having these awakenings, these understandings, these momentary realizations that then build up to a more lasting experience. Most people, in my experience, think of enlightenment as the satori, the kind of instant experience that you have, and it changes you forever, and that's what you're always looking for. And if you're not there yet, it's because you haven't had that one instance of enlightenment. Again, I don't think this is as helpful as recognizing that I might have multiple satoris. I remember the first time that I sat down to meditate, I had an instance where I was able to let go of the thoughts that I had rattling around in my mind, and I was focused on one breath. And it was probably not even an entire breath. It was probably just like a part of an inhale or a part of an exhale. But in that moment, it was incredible. Everything else dropped away, and it was just the experience of the breath. It wasn't even me experiencing the breath. It was just breath. It was just the moment. And of course, as soon as that happened, I went, oh, I did it. I'm meditating. I'm amazing. And then I lost it. It was gone because then I was back in the ego consciousness, right? And then what we have a tendency to do is to keep searching for that moment again. We're like, I had it the one time, I got to get it again. I got to experience that same thing, that same moment of clarity. And then we are attached to it. That's the ego, and the ego can't do this. You got to let go of all of that. And I've had some experiences in meditation where I only have it one time, and then that's it. And sometimes I'll think about it and I go like, that was really nice. I wonder if that's ever going to happen again. And I realize that if I get attached to it, that is just going to cause me to be sitting there as the ego, trying to get it, trying to win at meditation. And that's not how it works. There's a great story about martial arts training, traditional martial arts training, that really gets at the idea of embracing the suck and the difficulty of the journey and the kind of paradox of the whole thing that many of you have experienced in your own martial arts training or your meditation practice. There was a swordsman, and he was very well known, and this was olden times Japan, feudal Japan, and he decided he was going to send his son to go practice with a different swordsman, a different teacher, because we all know that our kids are never going to pay attention to us. So we're going to send them to somebody else. So his idea is, I'm going to send him to this very famous, very old swordsman who is renowned for his teaching skill. And so the son packs his bags and ends up, walking through the countryside for days and finally finds this teacher. And he says, Sensei, I've been sent here by my father. My father is such and such great teacher, and he's asked if you can please accept me as your student. And he's super excited because he knows that his father, has had a great life and is successful as a teacher, and he loves martial arts, and he wants to do the same thing, and he expects that he's going to be great. So he asks the teacher, who has agreed kind of in principle to accept him as a student. He says, how long will it take me to become a master of the sword? And the teacher says, about 7 years. And the son says, oh, that's too long. What if I double my efforts? And the teacher says, oh, then it'll take 15 years. And the student says, no, I'm going to work harder than anybody you've ever had as a student before. I'm going to be the best student there ever was. And the teacher says, oh, it's going to take a lifetime then. And the student is not happy to hear this. He's miffed. And he's thinking, well, this teacher is full of it, and I don't want any of this, but I got nowhere to go. I've been sent here, and this is my life now. And so he decides to take on this possibly lifelong journey to try to master his martial art. And sometimes this is told as a separate story, but I'm just going to tell it as a continuation of the same thing. So the teacher sets the student to work. And this is like Karate Kid. He's like sweeping his floor and painting his fence and washing dishes and, you know, all of these menial tasks around the house. And he's just doing these chores, and he's doing it for days. He's doing it for weeks. He's doing it for months. And he finally just throws down the broom and he says to the teacher, "You haven't taught me anything. I came here with the expectation that I was going to learn to be a great swordsman, and all I've been doing is cleaning your house and doing your chores for you." And the teacher says, "You're right. I may have been too strict with you." And so the next day, the student is cleaning and doing the chores, and the swordsman jumps out from behind the corner and whacks him with a wooden sword, a boken. And the student, just like in pain, "Why did you do that?" And the teacher just walks away. And the student just keeps going back to work, and he's now a little bit weary, and he starts looking over his back all the time, but he's not aware enough. And so the master jumps out again, he whacks him again. And he does this repeatedly, and the student is thinking, "I should not have said anything. I should have just kept sweeping the floor and washing the dishes, and that was way better than this." But eventually, through this very difficult method of practice and learning, the student starts to get this great awareness of his surroundings and of his own body. And eventually, the teacher is jumping out and swinging at him, and the student's able to get out of the way. He perceives the attack and he moves. And the teacher finally says, and this is years later, the teacher finally says, "Okay, now you've got something. Now you're ready to start." And what the student got from this is, like, if you guys have never seen videos of this experiment, you should watch it. It's very cute, and whatever they use, either a marshmallow or a cookie, but they'll take a kid and they'll sit them in a room with a cookie in front of them, and they say, "Don't eat this cookie, I'm going to come back." And they leave, and the kid's sitting there just like really wants that cookie. And some of the kids just eat the cookie, and then the person doing the experiment comes back and says, "What happened? You ate the cookie." And then some of the times they come back and the kid's just sitting there. They've been sitting there on their hands, and they've been really disciplined, and they didn't eat the cookie, and then so they get they get the cookie, or they get a reward. And they go back and they follow these kids through their lives, and they found the kids who had the best ability to resist and to kind of put off the urges that they have. What is the phrase that this is called? This is this is a very somebody figure it out and type it to me. It is delayed gratification. Never mind, I got it. So delayed gratification. These kids who show the best ability for delayed gratification later on in life end up just being way better at everything. I mean, they are more successful in their jobs, they're happier, they are whatever. You guys can look this up. But this is not something that everybody is born with. In fact, I think that most of us are not born with it. It's something we have to learn. And whether you're learning it through the lessons that our parents teach us, or by somebody just making you do chores and then whacking you with a wooden sword, eventually you got to learn this if you will ever achieve mastery, or if you will ever achieve enlightenment, because you cannot simultaneously be in the ego needing to have it now and being in the state of mastery or being in the state of enlightenment. It's one of the reasons why I say I think that it's more helpful to think of yourself as already being enlightened, right? Because then you can tell that little part of you, you already did it. So chill out, just relax. And we're just going to sit here and meditate and be exactly how great we can be right now. There's a concept that I refer to constantly from Zen mind, beginner's mind, where the author talks about the mind weeds that we encounter in our meditation. And these are the difficulties that we have when we sit to meditate along the journey in our path. We come up on these weeds, these thoughts that keep coming up, or these attachments. And what we want to do is accept those, embrace the difficulty, embrace the suck, take the weed in and bury it, and then the plant, the flower of our meditation, of our practice, will gain sustenance from that. And that embracing of the process, embracing of the pain, loving the journey, and being totally happy with exactly where you are now is it. This is like one of the best lessons that we can have. This is why patience is the first out of 5 ways of becoming great, because that is one of the most important things, and we must learn it, because without that patience, we're not going to be able to stick it out and be okay with being wherever we are on the journey. You're looking around and you're seeing other people and you're like, that person's better than me. That person started after me, but they're already taking that test. All of that ego mind is counterproductive. So when you find yourself struggling, you find yourself on the journey and it's not a flat road, it's like a very steep hill, and it's rocky and the rocks are falling down, and sometimes it feels like you're scrambling and you're just staying in the same place. Or you hit those plateaus in your practice where it's just like, I'm not getting any better. Is this it? Is this as far as I'm going to go? Maybe it is. And maybe that's what enlightenment is for you. So rather than seeing it as the destination and rushing to the end, see it as the act, the process. It is the step that you're taking right now. That earnest effort is enlightenment itself. And to be totally at peace with where you are right now is it. And when we are traveling down that difficult road, rather than just arriving at a place and having the knowledge given to us, like with the wave of a magic wand, what we learn along the way gives us perspective. And that perspective is what allows us to look back down the road that we've traveled on and see the progress that we've made and apply that to other things in life. Right? Knowledge without experience or knowledge without perspective is just facts. And when we have the experience and we get the perspective, then that becomes wisdom. And wisdom is our ability to apply these things, these lessons to everything in our life. And this is a form of enlightenment. So the journey, the difficulty of it, the process that we're going through is its own enlightenment, not the point that we're trying to get to at the end. So when you sit for meditation tonight, just love it. Love it exactly where you are right now. And this is what I've been talking about with the challenge of the week this week in the dojo, the internal challenge, which is 5 minutes or more of intense concentration and focus. When you're sitting to meditate, it is very tempting in the beginning to get into this mindset of, getting stressed about it. And I can't let any other thoughts get into my mind. And when my mind wanders, then I beat myself up for it. And it feels like you're forcing it the whole time. This is not going to get you where you want to go with your meditation practice. It is a letting go of that, letting go of the ego, and being perfectly happy. And in that moment, whatever it is you're doing, if it's meditation or if it's anything else, what we want to do is, instead of feeling like you're beating away those other thoughts, like beating the darkness out of a room with a stick, you just flip the light on, and that when the light comes on, it fills up the room, and the darkness has no place to be. You want to fill your consciousness up with the moment, so that distractions and the little mind, the ego, has no place to be. All there is room for is that light. All there's room for is that breath, or the full experience of the beauty of that moment. So try to go at your meditation with love, self-love, love for the moment. Try to go at this 5 minutes of intense focus with loving whatever it is that you're doing. And if it gives you this expansive feeling of being filled up, then that is going to be a much more enticing experience that you're going to want to keep going down that road with. Keep going down that road towards enlightenment. Keep going down the road where each step is enlightenment. Sit comfortably.